Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. This video is part of the YouTube series that I'm making called Zero to Hero Business Central. In this series, I already uploaded few videos on my YouTube channel. In this particular video, we are going to learn about flow fields in a Business Central. If you see the definition of flow fields aren't physical fields that are stored in the database. They are a description of a calculation and location for the result to be displayed. Do not worry about what this definition means because we are going to see how flow fields work in code as well as in Business Central. If you see, there are different types of flow fields like sum, average, exist, count, min, max, lookup. Basically, let us say you wanted to create a field, and in that particular field you wanted to put a calculation of some other fields in some other table. Let us actually see that in example. Let's say I have a table which is employee table. In here you can see there are three columns which are employee id, employee name, and basic salary. And in my employee setup page, let's say I wanted to create one more field which is basically going to store the calculations of basic salary, or I wanted to store name of a particular record, or I wanted to count how many records in this particular table are. So if you see, there's sum, there's average, there's exist, there is count, there's min, max, and average. Now let us see how we can use the flow field of type sum. So let us say I wanted to create a field. In that field, I wanted to actually store the sum of basic salary from this particular table. Basically, I can create a flow field of type sum, then I can calculate all the basic salary from this particular column in this particular table. Also, if I wanted to calculate the average salary, then I can go for the flow field of type average. If I wanted to check if there is a particular record in this table or not, then I can go for the exist flow field type. And if I wanted to check how many records are there in this particular table, then I can go for count. And if I wanted to check the minimum salary in this particular table, then I can go for the min flow field type. If I wanted to calculate the maximum salary, then I can also go with the max. And if I wanted to calculate the average salary, then I can go for the average. I think I have put the average twice over here, but you get the idea how we use the flow field. So let me actually go to my Business Central and let us see how that actually looks. So in here you can see I am on the employee setup page, and in here in the flow field section I have created employee count, max salary, average salary, minimum salary, salary sum, lookup name, record exist or not. I also have this employee ID which is currently holds the value 20. So if I show you the employee page, in here you can see I have the column basic salary. So we wanted to actually calculate the sum of all this basic salary whenever we are using the sum field. Like in here you can see salary sum. In this particular field I wanted to store the sum of the salaries from the employee table which is mentioned over here, which is of type basic salary. So let us actually do that in code. So these fields are on the employee setup page. So let me actually go to my employee setup table. So in here I'm already on the employee setup table, and in here you can see these are the fields that I have. So first let me actually go with the example which is of sum. So if you see also the description, the sum of a specified set in a column in a table. So let me go to my Visual Studio Code. In here, let me actually first we have to mention the field class which is flow field. If you wanted to make any field a flow field, first you need to specify the field class property as flow field. After that, we can see calci formula. We have to use this particular property which is calci formula, and I'm going to do sum, and inside sum I'm going to specify the employee table, and I'm going to specify the basic salary. So that's all that you have to do in order to calculate the sum of the salary from the employee table. So let me actually publish this and let us see how that actually looks in the UI, how the salary gets calculated. So let me go to my business central again. Let me refresh this once. I am on the employee setup page. In here now you can see this has calculated the salary sum. So basically this salary sum is, if I go to my employee page, that field is basically sum of all the values which are over here. So 10 plus 20 plus 15 plus 17 plus 29 plus 40, which is equals to 131. Now let us actually see the second one, which is average. So let me go to my Visual Studio Code again, and let me go to the average, which is over here. Now again, first we have to mention the field class, which is again type flow field, and in here I have to mention the calci formula, which is average. So let me do that. Average of, then again I have to mention the table, which is employee table, and in here I have to mention the basic salary. Now let me actually publish this so that we can actually have the average of the basic salary. So let me go to my business central here and let me refresh this once. Now it should be, now it has calculated the average salary. So if I go to my employee page, basically the average of this particular basic salary is 21.83. Now let us actually see the third one is, which is exist. I wanted to check, for example, let me go to my employee page and let's say I wanted to check if the record exists with the employee ID 30 or not. So in here the record exists. So let me go in here. I have the field record exist, which is our third flow field type, which is exist. So let me actually do that. Let me go in my Visual Studio Code again and let me check for the field record exists. So here it is, and again we have to mention the field type as flow field. And now let me actually do the calci formula and let me say exist, and in here I want to check if the employee table exists with the record, that is if I go to my employee page with the ID 30 exists or not. So what I have to do is I have to write a condition like where class where I wanted to check, like in this particular table I have the field employee ID. So I wanted to put a value in this particular field, which is let's say 30, and I wanted to check if there is a record in the employee page with the ID 30. So what I have to do is I have to put the employee ID over here, and I wanted to say field of employee ID. So basically this field is from the employee table. If I go in here, you can see this points to the employee table, and this field actually points to the employee setup table, which is over here. So basically what I am doing over here is I am checking if the record exists or not in an employee table with some employee ID. So let me actually publish this and let us see what we are trying to achieve. So let me go in my business central again. Let me refresh this once. Now here you can see basically I have put the value 20, so the record exists is true, because in the employee page, if I go to my employee page with this employee ID, the record exists. So now let me actually give a value with which the record does not exist. So let me give 70. Now here you can see the record exists becomes false, because on the employee page we do not have an employee record with the employee ID 70, so it is going to be false. So this record exists becomes false. Now if I just give 10, you can see this record exists becomes true, because we have a record with employee ID 10 in employee table. Now let us actually see the fourth one, which is count. Now let me go in here. here you can see I have the employee count field, and in here, if I go to my employee page, I wanted to count how many records that are in this particular table. So there are 6 records right now. So let me actually go to my Visual Studio Code and let me go to my employee count, and let's actually say again field class equals to flow field, and let's write calci formula equals to count of. It is simple. We just have to provide the table name over here, and let me now publish this and let us see how that actually looks in Business Central. Now let me go to my Business Central and let me do the refresh. Now here you can see the employee count is 6 because we are calculating how many number of records that are in the employee table. So that is employee count, and now let us see the min. And if I go to my Visual Studio Code, in here I have min salary. So let me again do the field class as flow field, and let me actually use the calci formula as min of employee table then basic salary. And let me do this again. Let me publish this. Now let us see how that actually looks in Business Central. So let me go to my Business Central. Let me refresh this once. Here now we should have the minimum salary, which is 10, which we can also verify by going to employee page. In here you can see the minimum value among these basic salary is 10, so the min salary is 10. Now let us actually see the another flow field type, which is max. So let me go to my Visual Studio Code again. Let me put the field class again as flow field, and let me just say calci formula equal to which is max, and it is again simple, same employee table dot basic salary. And now let me go in here, let me publish this and let us see how that actually looks. Now let me go in here to the Business Central, let me refresh this, and here we should be able to find the max salary. We can again verify that by going in employee page. In here you can see the max salary. Now let me do one thing, let me change this to let's say 50. So now the max salary becomes 50. So let me go in here, let me do the refresh once and let us see if that updates. So here you can see the max salary now gets updated to 50 because that was the maximum salary in the employee table. So that is max salary, and now let us actually see lookup. Here basically we have employee ID. I wanted to look up the name for this particular employee ID. I can also do that by using the flow field. So let me go in here, let me go to my lookup name field, and let me again do the field class as flow field, and now let me write the calci formula. Now let us use the lookup, and in here basically I want the employee name, so I'm going to write the employee name, and in here I need to use where clause, so I can put a condition where I can say like employee id equals to field of, let's say, employee employee, which is, let me just go in here, let me do this. Oh, the filter, but the field. So let me just remove this, let me add one more, and let me do this, and now let me add the employee id over here, and now let me save this and let us publish. And now let me actually show you how that lookup works. So in here, let me go to my Business Central, let me go to my Business Central, let me refresh this, and in here you can see with the employee id 10 I have the name as Tulasidas. So let me actually do one thing, let me just do it 20. Now here you can see it is changed to Ramesh. Let me just say 30. Now here you can see it is changed to Suresh. So Flow fields actually calculate the values on the runtime, so they are not actually stored in the database, but they are actually calculated on the runtime only. So here we have seen all the flow field types like sum, average, exist, count, min, max, lookup. Basically, if I wanted to have a field which is calculation of other fields from other table, then we can go for flow fields. In flow fields, we can do sum, average, exist, count, min, max. So these are some of the types of flow fields and some of the calculations that we can do. We have seen with the example by taking the employee table, and we have created one field on the employee setup page where we basically did the calculation. Like if we wanted to calculate the sum in that field from this basic salary, we did that by using the flow field sum. And if we wanted to calculate average of the basic salary, we did that by using the average flow field type. And if I wanted to check for a particular record whether that record exists or not, we did that with the exist. And if we wanted to count the number of records in this particular table, we did that with the count. And if we wanted to calculate the minimum salary from basic salary, we did that with the min. And if we wanted to calculate the maximum salary, we again did that with the max. So that's what we can do with the flow fields. So flow fields basically calculate values during the runtime, and they do not store any values in the database. That's what actually mentioned in the definition as well. So if you like this video about flow fields, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be uploading more videos in this particular series called Zero to Hero Business Central. If you don't want to miss them, you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.